My name is Hannah Awaji. I am the mother of Aaron, who lives with cerebral palsy. Aaron is 7 years old. She turned 7 in January. Aaron was my first child, and so it was a very expected pregnancy. A pregnancy that I really prepared for and prayed for. I made sure that I took all my medication and everything. I even had a private doctor, so I wasn't following the queue. I also had a normal delivery. I also always say that with all my children, she was the one that I had the most smooth delivery. 3 days after her birth, we realized that her eyes were yellow, very yellow. It was my first child, so we thought it was part of the baby's changing stuff. We asked a few people who said, oh, this yellow is a normal thing. And usually if you show the baby to the morning sun, it clears it. So we didn't really panic about it. 2 weeks postnatal, we went to the hospital and she was really yellow. So people were like, your daughter is sick, your baby is sick. We panicked, we went to see the pediatricians. And we did a lot of things, but nobody said anything to me at that time that, oh, this or that. So at some point I just said, oh, she'll be fine. In fact, I actually started thinking that someone is doing something spiritually to my baby, and said I would just commit it to prayer. And then 3 months she was fine. Her eyes, the color on her eyes when she grew plumpy and everything. But when I carried her, people used to say, your baby's neck is not stable. And I didn't even understand what that meant. 9 months I was going for my, what they call the weighing. And then she was going to have an injection. And then I saw another person's 9 months old. And I realized that even though she was much taller and plumpier, the other person's 9 months old could stand and mine couldn't. So at that point, I said, there should be something wrong, because I used to let her sit, but she was only sitting in chairs and something. So it was at that time that I realized that my daughter could not even sit by herself. So then she was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. It's been a long journey, because when you have a child diagnosed like that, it comes in, you are first very depressed. Because as a mother, you have expectations. I'm going to give birth to a child. I had a lot of expectations about how I want my children to be and all those things. So,
Welcome back. And now this morning, she joins us here with her amazing survivor story, Mrs. Hannah Awaji. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hannah is the executive director for a Special Mothers Project. She's doing so well with that project. It's only nice that we can get to know her situation even more better. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm
How's
delighted.
Aram doing?
Aram is fine.
Great.
She's fine.
Yes.
Are you fine?
I'm fine.
Fantastic. That's what's
How
most
long
important.
have you been fine? Ever since,
A great question.
yes.
Yeah.
Ever since you knew she was living with palsy.
No, you don't get fine immediately. Your daughter is diagnosed with a condition.
Right.
You go through phases of grief, depression, and all rejection, and then acceptance. I think my acceptance came when she was around 2 years old.
Okay.
And ever since, I'm okay.
You've been fine.
Yes.
Tell us about this cerebral palsy. I mean, surely you are nearly a doctor now yourself because of research and asking questions.
So
yeah.
I tell people that cerebral palsy now is like my most studied subject ever in life, because I wake up to it every day. I read about it every day. I meet people who have it. I talk to parents and all those things. So I really know cerebral palsy now. It's what they will call a neurological condition, a brain condition. In simple terms, it's injury to the brain. Some part of the brain of the person living with cerebral palsy is injured.
Okay.
But with cerebral palsy, the injury affects movement.
Right.
So if my daughter wants to pick something, instead of just picking, the brain doesn't allow her to just pick. So she knows she wants to pick, but her hands goes flying around before she can pick it. And its picking is the simplest, but some can't sit at all because sitting is movement. So that is basically cerebral palsy.
So basically, she's always in motion.
The body moves without her knowing. Without her control. Yes.
So she loses that self-control in that.
Yes.
What has been some of the worst situation with her at home since she cannot understand, movement, this cerebral palsy and the way, it controls the human?
Okay, so Aram understands in terms of talk and everything. She understands everything. Okay. I don't know if I'll call. She gets frustrated because she sees her siblings playing, and she wants to play, and maybe she can't, or she tries to get up and she falls, and she gets frustrated. But I'm sure she's also learning to adjust to it. So, worst situation.
In the video, she's wearing her school uniform.
Yes.
And I want to ask you how she's. Is just for want of a better word or out of ignorance, what school is she in? How is she coping with her friends?
Okay, so she's one of the reasons I started the Special Mothers Project. I realized that there was no policy for them at all. So if you have a child like her, you just have to stay home. And that was like my biggest frustration. I didn't want to stay home. I wanted to be a working career woman and mother and wife and everything. So I started finding out, is there no policy in this country for a child like this? And then I realized that, there's the inclusive education policy, among other policies that are not being implemented. So she started her schooling normally, in a normal crèche. With time, like the children grow and are able to do things for themselves, but she wasn't. So the school will get frustrated. We have moved her from school to school. I think where she is now is about her 5th or 6th school. But where she is at the Medina Demonstration School. It's a government school. I chose that school because that school is one of the schools being piloted by government as an inclusive school. So the school have a special unit where children with special needs are supposed to be admitted. She is in the mainstream class. She's in class 1. So she sits in class with about 45, thereabout children.
With the same
No, she sits in the mainstream class, not the special needs class. She sits in the class where everybody is regular.
Oh, well, because she's moved from, there was a special unit for them,
There's a special unit.
But now she's in class 1, so she's moved into...
She even was in KG2 with her colleagues. The reason is that I want to push for her to be included. You see, children with disabilities are in various categories or whatever. But in Ghana, we look at them all as one. A child with cerebral palsy is not the same as a child with Down syndrome or a child with autism. They are different. So my daughter, Aram, is not intellectually disabled. She is able to follow instructions. She understands her environment. She knows what is going on. She likes to play with other children. She understands what you are doing for her. She understands when you are talking to her. If I place her among children that do not have any understanding, for instance, what I do is that I get her to retrogress. And I realized this because my daughter wasn't sitting initially till I had my son, they have just a year interval. And when my son started walking, my son will frustrate her, pick something she's holding. And then one day I realized that she was crawling to follow the brother. So I realized that she learns from the regular children, even for speech. So I have pushed for her to be in a mainstream school with regular children where she sits and then...
One thing that in schools develop is writing. Now, for her that she has, a challenge with controlling her movement, how does that work out?
Okay, so she in her class, she just sits there and listen. Great. She doesn't write or do anything. I don't think they've even assessed her before in terms of academics, but for me, I'm happy that she has a
Yes.
place to be.
Yeah.
I can go to work, come back and pick her up like any other child.
What's the situation like in school? Is she discriminated against? What's the situation really like?
Well, so the first time she moved to the regular class, I was in KG2. I walked to the teacher and said to her, this is the child with cerebral palsy. I want you to announce to the class that my daughter has cerebral palsy, but I want everybody to be her friend. And the teacher did that in my presence. And that has been it. Wow. The children want to actually carry her from my hands when I drop her. They feed her. Now, because she can't feed herself, okay. So when I pack her, but the children feed her, they give her water, they clean her mouth when she's drooling, they see her off to the car when I pick her up.
That's beautiful.
This environment has grown that attraction, that love and care for her. Has she ever been in any other new environment besides school?
Well, we go to church. For me, we go to church together with her. We go to places, wherever we go. I tell people that I think that stigma exists a lot, yes. But I particularly don't like to pay attention to stigma. So if you are looking at me and my daughter, I walk up to you and explain to you that, hey, she has cerebral palsy and this, and so that you will even learn to pick her or something.
I see that you're very strong, but have you ever blamed yourself? Did you for once think that it's genetic? How did this come about?
Okay, so that's why I said it's like the most read subject something I've really read about. Aram had jaundice on the 3rd day.
Okay.
Neonatal jaundice. Neonatal jaundice is very common. It's common with babies. When it happens, when you go to the hospital, they will put the child under what is called phototherapy,
okay,
which clears the yellowing,
right,
and the child is okay. It takes less than 24 hours.
Amazing.
Unfortunately for me, when Aram had jaundice, I didn't know about phototherapy. When I asked, they said, oh, when you show her to the morning sun, it can clear it. So I also did that.
You wake up in the morning.
You show
Vitamin
people
D.
actually do it, and it works. It has worked for some people.
Okay.
So in Aram's case, it didn't work. Maybe we weren't getting the right temperature from the sun or whatever. And then we went to the hospital 2 weeks after, and I was even going for my postnatal checks, no hair. And then everybody that sees the baby says, hey, your child is yellow. She's sick. And I didn't understand what that means. So they started doing series of tests and all those things. But the problem is that in our health at that time, nobody spoke to you as a parent what is happening. You don't know what is going on. All you are told is come and do this test, do that test. At the point, I just said, oh, something has happened. Let me just go and pray for my daughter or something. Yeah. But her cerebral palsy is caused by jaundice.
Okay.
Yes.
What are some of, have you identified any skills, talent, things about her?
I'm still learning a lot about her, but I try everything. I try swimming, I've tried music, I've tried things.
Yeah.
She seems to enjoy a lot of things. So
what is the what future do you see for her and do you have for her?
Okay. I always laugh when people ask me about future.
Yeah.
One thing that gave me confidence about having her was Farida Beji. There's a lady called Farida Beji in Ghana. She lives with cerebral palsy. She's about 40 years. She's an IT entrepreneur and very outspoken. I had seen Farida before I got married and had Aram, but I didn't know what she had. But when Aram was giving the diagnosis, after my brooding and everything, I said, but this Farida lady is leaving. She's working, and why? So at that point, I said, okay, my daughter's future is in the hands of God. We humans try to calculate, okay, if a child doesn't go to school or this, that, they might not become this or that. But I've seen a person with cerebral palsy in Ghana who is a lawyer and works with charge. I've seen someone working at the controller and accountant general who has cerebral palsy. I've seen students in the university with cerebral palsy. So I don't worry about her. Like I don't know what my regular son and
It's
my
growing.
other
So
daughter.
how much more? Exactly.
Yeah, so I don't.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is very inspiring, and we're wishing you all the best. And may the right, let me say, infrastructure and policies be put in place. You know, may your situation set an example, and your fight and your struggle set an example. You know, strong enough to bring the world's attention to this. And
which you're doing very well with the
doing very
Special
well.
Mothers Project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can we find you once again with this project?
Okay, so I always tell people my office is home.
Okay.
But I am very loud on Facebook
Okay.
and all the other social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram,
Okay.
and LinkedIn.
Okay.
And
That's it.
basically, yeah.
Okay.
with the name
Special Mothers
Mothers
Project,
Project,
Special Mothers
or
Project.
Hanawaji.
Okay.
Okay.
Both pages find a lot of things with cerebral palsy. And other
All
things,
right.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Kisses to Ayo. All right.
Yeah.
Cool down, take it off, it's time to go now.